All right. So I set the intention recently to not do things so last minute, but this idea did come to me last minute. And because I'm a manifesting generator and it was a full body yes, I was just like, let's see what happens. It just feels really fun. I was reviewing the astrology of this coming, or the year we're in now, for my other programs, and I was like, wow, there's just so much interesting material to contemplate because obviously we can't really predict what's going to happen, and that's not really the point. We can see an energetic landscape and we can kind of prepare ourselves in terms of our intention and our mindset, but we won't know exactly what's going to happen. Maybe some people will. Maybe some of you are super intuitive and can see what the future holds, but this is about really supporting you to be in your best frame of mind to make the most of this year. So, why? Because we just came out of a dragon year, or we're kind of coming out of a dragon year. And the dragon year is a very egoic energy. It's a very hyper masculine energy. And for a lot of my clients and a lot of like feminine embodied people, this hyper masculine dragon energy has been very difficult. It's been kind of like getting back up, getting knocked down, getting up, getting knocked down. It's been a kind of wave after wave from what I've seen a lot of people talking about. And that's because this particular year of the dragon was a cumulative year. So it was bringing up probably the last 10, 12 years of your momentum, your beliefs, your karma, what you have been doing, what you haven't been doing, self-care, connection to self, lack of connection to self, boundaries or boundaries violated. All this stuff came to a head in this dragon year and showed you in one big bullshit way, how are you doing? How am I doing? Like, what is the cosmic feedback? And because it's so expansive and cumulative, some of the things that happened this year, we can't find a trace, origin point, like why did this happen? Because it's hard to really process what that might have been. But this was like a cumulative effect. And so the good things were very big and cumulative, and the bad things were very big and cumulative. So we've had this big bulky energy that's a little bit hard to deal with if you aren't already very fit and strong, basically. It's like working out. It's like if you had been working out for the past 11 years and you got to Dragon Year, you'd be in a good place to charge to the top of the mountain and, plant your flag or claim the prize or whatever. If you were a little out of shape, the Dragon Year would make you feel how out of shape you were because it's so intense. So everything is useful. Everything is feedback from the universe to help us continue to course correct our path and be better. And that's why Snake Year is so interesting to me and so powerful of an energy because it is the time in which we can correct all of the stuff that came up in Dragon Year. So if we had huge issues or minor issues showing up, or we had false starts or things that we really had big dreams that we wanted to come into creation, but they didn't. The snake gear is where we can parse it all apart and look at the granular details and fix these things in the foundations of our energy, of our body, of our life. And then once snake year is done, re-emerge stronger than ever. Because snake year wants us to go deep. It wants us to find the true source of what ails us or what holds us back. And it wants to help us on that healing journey of purifying who we are, our intentions, our relationship to ourselves, our habits, our boundaries, all of these functional structures of our life. Snake can really help us get under the woodwork, into the foundations to really fix things that in other years we just don't have access to this stuff. So there are two gates that are interesting kind of role models and examples for this in human design. And Dragon Year was very gate 26. And if you have gate 26 in your human design, maybe you know about it. But gate 26 is called um, Taming Power of the Great. It's about ego. It's about having the best step. It's about being the most powerfully seen, the best, basically. It's about the ego and the willpower behind being the best and advertising yourself as the best and showing up with a lot of muscle. So Dragon Year rewarded people who had the most firepower, who had the most muscle. It just gave them what they had coming for them. Now, as we move into the Snake Year, we're moving into what I would say is like a gate 9, which is taming power of the small. So we're going from the taming power of the great to the taming power of the small. So whereas big, bulky things got you the prize in the Dragon Year, subtle, detail-oriented, and pattern-based things are going to get you the win in Snake Year. So when we look at the human design body graph, I'll pull up a example here. We can kind of see where these two things live and start to begin to imagine how they relate to us. So I'm just going to show the chart of the moment as an example. And none of these gates are in play right now, technically, but I just want to show you where they live in the body graph. So gate 26 is here in the heart center. Gate 26 is therefore a gate of willpower, meaning that the Dragon Year was all about will, ego. I think I'm the greatest, so I feel entitled to this thing, this plot of land, this person, this resource, whatever. The heart center has a lot to do with resources. It has a lot to do with commitment, promises, pacts, contracts, things that keep us locked into a role or an identity. And so another big thing that happened in Dragon Year is that if you are stuck with a role or an identity that you don't love, you really felt the weight of that in Dragon Year because your willpower, your heart center was not in it. It wasn't powering the energy of the year the way that it would have, best been. So we really felt the weight on our system, on our heart. And gate 26 is also a gate of immunity. So it could have been a year where our immunity was worn down by improper energetic conditions. So that was this previous cycle. Now we're moving into a gate 9 year. This is just my own personal human design interpretation. It's to illustrate the energy. Gate 9 is called preponderance of the small or taming power of the small. So we go into the sacral center for this gate. Now, where the willpower center or the heart is about big movements and then long periods of rest, typically, the sacral center is about getting up and doing it every day. It's about repetitive cycles, it's about patterns, it's about routines, and it's about mastering the sequencing of life to create vitality and to ensure healthy regeneration. Because the sacral center is the life force center, it's the Kundalini, it's that energy that powers all things on this planet. If we didn't have the sacral, life itself would not exist. So in a gate 9 year, we're asked to look at the deep layers of the sequence of our life and the way that we give our energy to things. And where can we unplug energy from things that are not regenerating us and giving us vitality? And where can we plug into patterns, routines, behaviors, etc., that actually give us strength, vitality, that nourish us, that amplify our abundance, and that give us the satisfaction that we require to want to continue living, basically. If we're in a sacral year and we're forcing our energy to do something it doesn't want to, things will get tricky. And that's the other side of snake. It's very slippery. It's very mysterious. It's very secretive. It likes the undergrowth. It likes to be kind of vague and unclear at times. And if you're not living by your destiny, which means living in alignment with your human design, that means the fates have to intervene. And the fates are what happens to you to get you back on track with your destiny. So when we have bad things or crises or difficulties in our life process, that's usually the fates coming in and saying, hey, we need you to stop doing what you've been doing because it's not working. We need to get you back on your actual destined path and your relationship with the cosmos. And that means getting out of our own way. So if crises, if weird situations show up, if, things that seem insurmountable show up in the year of the snake, it's to help you see and expand into who you really are meant to be. If a challenge shows up and it seems insurmountable, wrong, it's showing you how big you actually are and how big you'll actually have to grow to solve that problem. And you're going to do that, even if it's a big, big problem, you're going to do that through very minute, very detail oriented, logical, pattern based thinking, meaning finding the repeating patterns, finding the trends, finding that piece of data or information that changes the perspective of the situation. It's about doing detail work, reading the fine print in contracts, making sure you're not being screwed over by any kind of legalese or tiny little clause that you didn't see on the surface. It's about looking deeply into things and having the love and care for yourself enough to push past your typical routines, perhaps your typical way of doing things, to make sure that all the details are looked at. So, made that pretty clear. Um, and here's the thing. Here's the really interesting thing. We're moving from a wood dragon year into a wood snake year. Dragon is big snake. Snake is little dragon. But they're both coming from the element of wood. So even though there's a big shift in scale, we're moving down to the microscopic now from the very, 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 very existential. Even though there's a big shift in scale, we're actually moving in a continuum with what's already been going on some level. There's something that we're continuing that happened in the last year. So whatever your biggest wins were from Dragon Year 2024, you're going to build on those. You're going to syndicate those. You're going to duplicate, replicate, multiply, reproduce. You're going to make more. You're going to increase around those things, but you're going to do it in smaller ways. So as far as the meeting chat and typing in there, I'm going to get to that at the end just so that we stay in flow. But by all means, continue to share your thoughts, your wins, your questions. And if there's some good stuff in there at the end, we'll go back and go over it. So that's a overall take on the year of the snake. Now here's our cute graphic that represents, the shift that we're moving into. And again, this shift takes place on January 29th of this year. The Lunar New Year or the Chinese Astrology New Year, which is celestial astrology, meaning there's no planets. This always takes place on the first new moon after winter solstice. So that will be at the end of this month. And so we just have a couple more weeks of our dragon year energy, and then we slither into this really big shift in scale. And I want you to keep that in mind. Contemplate that. How can you shift your scale, whether it's how you're thinking about the world, how you think about yourself, how you think about your business, your relationships? How can you shift the scale to something smaller in order to see things you weren't seeing before, which can create miracles? Because what is a miracle? It's merely a shift in perception. So the zodiac, sign I would give to this year is Virgo. Snake year is going to give you the power of Virgo, which is the healer. And it is about details. It is about breaking down the super microscopic. And that's where alchemy comes in, because alchemy has the power to change base materials on a molecular, atomic, subatomic, quantum level, reorganize things like, basically like turning coal into gold, something like that. Reorganize things on a very microscopic level to create seemingly miraculous effects. So this is a year in which we're going to see on a global scale this whole idea of like quantum physics and quantum computing and getting really microscopic, microchips, microprocessors, things of this nature. Tiny things are going to be in the spotlight in the year of the snake. And revolutions in how we see are going to happen based on new discoveries with tiny things. Obviously, this can mean viruses and bacteria, things of that nature as well. It affects every area of life. But because it's a wood snake, we're still growing something. We are moving in a process of increase, of growth, of abundance. And that's a good sign. We're going to have to be skillful. We're going to have to be future focused. We're going to have to be detailed, but we still will grow. It's not yet a time of decrease. And a lot of people have that fear on their mind with the global fiat currency system, global instability, war, etc. There's a big fear collectively around us not having enough. And based on the elemental makeup of this year and the planets changing signs, I don't see this as a year where things come to a halt, slow down, or dry up. It's a continuation of abundance. I don't believe that we'll get into the real scarcity and famine kind of vibe until 2027, because that's a goat year, and goat years are a little bit more dry. And we also have all this stuff happening in 2027 that really marks it as an end of a cycle, an end of an economic cycle. So that means we have roughly 2 more years to enjoy what the kind of abundance that we're used to and play that up, increase on that, build on that. And so let's move into the presentation. Year of the Wood Snake. So here are planetary shifts of the year. And I'm going to leave this slide up for a minute if you want to take notes here. The first thing that we'll be talking about in general is the lunar nodes that have shifted. So the lunar nodes, they really describe, in human design speak, the environment. What are people thinking about? What are people feeling about? What are people focused on? What are they drawn to? Where are they going? What do they feel some kind of pressure to pursue? North node, south node determines kind of like this environmental factor. So when I was a kid, I used to watch this show called Reboot, where these people lived in a computer. And in order to like maintain the balance of the system of the computer, they would have to play these games. And every so often, these giant purple cubes would descend out of the sky and they would say, "Warning, incoming game." And everyone would get trapped in the purple cube and they would have to beat the game, whatever that could be, like, underwater or baseball or whatever. They'd had to beat the game to get out and get the next level and maintain the balance. So that's what the node shifting is like, a new game, a new energy, a new kind of challenge profile is descending upon us collectively. And we're going to have to step up to these new challenges because it's what grows us. The nodes are what propel evolution. If there were no nodal shifts, we would stay doing the same things pretty much all the time, and things would be relatively slow. Now, what's interesting about the nodes is that they pull in energy from deep space. So, in terms of the neutrino imprint, or like, you could say the frequency that they're bringing to the planet, they're pulling this stuff from outside our solar system. So, we're used to the energies in our solar system. They define the life that we live. We know our planets. We even know our asteroids now. We know our moons. It's our own little neighborhood. It's comfortable for us for the most part. The nodes bring in X factor energies from way beyond our neighborhood. So it's a very alien kind of energy, and it brings in this kind of edge, basically. I used to feel really kind of not happy about the nodes. I used to feel like they were kind of scary, but actually, when we rewrite our perception of what challenge really is, we can kind of embrace what the nodes bring. And obviously, nodes bring eclipses as well. And there will be really potent eclipses throughout this year. And that's something I'm going to cover as we get closer to eclipse season in a different webinar. So today, we're mainly going to focus on Venus retrograde in Aries and Pisces, coming soon, Neptune entering Aries, Saturn entering Aries, Jupiter entering Cancer, Uranus entering Gemini, and Pluto moving into gate 41. So all of these are pretty massive shifts, and we're going to look at them through the human design gates and talk about what those precise themes are, because we can talk about a planet going into a sign, but the thing I love about human design is that we can actually see bit by bit what kind of themes are running based on what's coming. So here's our kind of transit timeline. The nodes in Pisces and Virgo will be here for 566 days, 18 months. That's really cool. Venus retrograde will last just 43 days. And down here we have the dates, so you can kind of see when they're happening again. Then we have Neptune entering into Aries. Then we have Saturn entering into Aries. Then we have Jupiter in Cancer and Uranus in Gemini. So we kind of have this cascade of change that begins in the spring. So First thing we're going to talk about is this Venus retrograde in Aries and Pisces. I'm calling it rewriting relationship without our karmic overlay. Why that? Because for the past couple years, Neptune and Saturn have been in Pisces. So Saturn is a planet of karma, and Neptune is a planet of our spiritual perception, our spiritual mission, our connection to our higher self. And in some cases, it's a process of transformation that is generational. So, why without our karmic overlay? It's because Neptune and Saturn have already been in Pisces. They've been dissolving the karma, breaking up the karma in Pisces, the sign of karma, the sign that takes all of the residual overflow karma and holds it in the unconscious. And that's why a lot of us are drawn to this work in the first place. We can feel the effects that the unconscious trauma, baggage, damage, whatever we can feel the effects of this unconscious stuff has on our waking life, on our conscious life. It holds us back, it limits us, it makes us uncomfortable in our bodies. It affects our relationships because all this stuff is like all these screens, all the trauma, all the past lives, all the karma are like these overlays in our energy bodies, and our consciousness gets projected through. And so we have this really spotty, you know, patchy, uncomfortable. We have a lot of false starts. We have a lot of things breaking up. We have a lot of codependency. We have a lot of friction because all this unconscious stuff is blocking the pure light of our consciousness from coming through. So Saturn and Neptune in Pisces have been kind of like pulling all this old crap apart, like pulling the cobwebs out of the unconscious and making us go through a lot of experiences that sometimes don't make sense because they're coming from such an unconscious place. We're like, why? What was that about? It's because it's coming up to the surface to clear and release. So that our karmic storehouse, which is Pisces, which is also our connection to source, our connection to everything, the totality, unity, is more clear. We no longer are going to have such a difficult connection with spirit now that these planets have moved through. So to kind of finish that work and to really kind of, let's say we've been doing this deep unconscious psychic surgery, Venus is coming in and she's kind of suturing us back up. So all this stuff that has been torn open and bleeding and we've kind of had to remove by, what's the word? Amputation. All the stuff we've had to take out now gets to be kind of like healed and brought back together. And that's what this retrograde is about. It's about being able to show up in relationship for the first time without so much baggage and karma in our way, affecting us. And of course, it's Venus, so it's going to really spotlight and highlight how this has implications in our relationships, and even more so in the human design lens, our values. So what do we value and why? What are we attracted to and why? If you have a lot of unconscious codes in your subconscious mind about being traumatized by a certain profile person, like your partner or whatever, you're going to keep attracting traumatic partners until you fix that pattern. And unfortunately, we don't really experience it that way. We just feel like we're getting more and more of something we don't want, but it's because it's being attracted from our unconscious. So this Venus retrograde is the first time in a long time, for many of us, the first time in this lifetime, that we're going to be able to get into relationships that aren't so defined by these issues, these codependencies, these karmas, these recurring, just draining scenarios. We kind of get a new slate and we're going to be able to attract from a new place, and that's going to change things for the better. So we're going to look at the gates that this Venus retrograde is going through. And that kind of tells us, what are we rewriting here? A retrograde is a retrofitting, it's a rewriting, it's a, taking an old definition and giving it a new assignment to a new definition. What are we working on, basically? So for the first 10 days of this Venus retrograde, we're working on gate 21, which is in the heart center. Gate 21 is called biting through, and it's about controlling our resources and all of the weird implications that we have between resources and self-worth. So, do other people see our worth? Do we get paid our worth in an employment position? Are we charging our worth for our services in our business? Um, are we giving people access to us too freely because we're looking for outside validation of our worth? Worthiness and worth, especially when it comes to resources, because Gate 21 is very much about resources, is really going to be under review for these first 10 days. And this is a really big sore spot for people. You know, people have a lot of trauma around money. People have a lot of trauma around relationships and money. And with Venus retrograde over these degrees for these 10 days, it's going to be like a deep dive into all the reasons why money and relationships aren't working for you in your life. You have total control to change this, but it requires you to work on the belief level. And because gate 21 is in the heart, you're going to have to look at your commitments. Where are you overcommitting and selling yourself short? And where are you undercommitting in a place that could actually grow your abundance and your relationship to yourself and your business and et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to have to review commitments and make some cuts probably so that we have the energy to be put into things that give us resource dividends in return. After that first 10 days, we're going to look at gate 17 for 16 days. We're going to retrofit and review the vision of our life around, and it's really going to be tied around our values. So how do your values limit or expand the vision for your life? If your value is, say, you know, like a value is it's a belief system. You know, a value is what you believe is valuable. So if you intrinsically have something in your belief system that doesn't believe you'll ever have enough money to do the things you love, then you're going to really limit your vision for your life. You're going to keep it nice and safe right here. If you rewire that belief system to expand and accept that you're totally capable of manifesting whatever you need to live your dreams, the vision of your life expands. You let yourself see more. You let yourself expect more. And that's how you create more. So gate 17 is really going to have us look at the pattern of, it's really about thinking pattern and how we might be stuck in outdated thinking patterns that prevent us from manifesting something that's truly worth our while. And this could be based on personal experience. This could be based on past life issues. Venus is a planet of soul and reincarnation. So sometimes a Venus retrograde will bring things up to the surface from 10 lifetimes ago that are still affecting you somewhat as like a curse or some kind of reoccurring negative experience. And even that can be really helpful because you're like, wow, I've been dealing with this my whole life. Where is it coming from? Oh, it's coming from when I was beheaded in Marie Antoinette's court. And now I'm afraid to have money ever again because it triggers this fear that I'm going to get persecuted or executed. So, of course, I'm not going to open up to abundance. But if we remove that clause, we change our vision for our life and we accept new things. So, that's really cool. These are our prime Aries gates. And as we move into the next one, we're moving into Pisces territory. So then we have Venus move through gate 25 for 7 days. And gate 25 is huge this year because this is the boundary at the very end, like 29th degree Pisces, that begins the 0 degree of Aries, that birth point, aka the spring equinox point. And we're going to see so many planets cross gate 25 this year. So it's really going to be something we're going to talk about a lot today. So gate 25 is the gate of unconditional love. It's in the G center. So it's about a quality of love that you bring to the world. Now, in human design, the definition of love is that love is a self-organizing system that only attracts, meaning that it does not repel, it does not push away, it does not exclude, it does not differentiate. Love just welcomes more and it keeps attracting and attracting and attracting. And in that process of attraction and pulling more in, there is a divine order to it. There is a cosmic order. There is a pre-existing creational algorithm that puts everything in its place and keeps everything in order. It may seem like right now in on Earth, everything is not in balance, but it is. That's the thing. We're seeing the unveiling of why things are the way they are so that we can shift the balance to one that's more amenable to how we want to see things. But right now, everything is always in balance. That's just the nature of creation. It may not be the way we want it, but that's our job to then manifest our desires into reality to shift things. So, gate 25 is really interesting as well because gate 25 is a gate that every single inanimate object in creation has. It's a gate that's not confined to the human species or even the animal species. Every little piece of plastic, every rock, every shell, every drop of water has a gate 25. It's the one gate that's shared with everything. And on the other side of gate 25 in the body graph is the gate of shock. So gate 25 is something that's very open to shock. It wants to receive shock because shock lets it transform. So when that lightning bolt hits the desert sand and it turns it into glass, right? Or when the the blacksmith is striking the metal again and again and folding it again and again and forming it into a razor sharp sword. Life needs shock to shape it into new forms, new definitions, new directions, new qualities, new shapes, new sizes. So while all these planets, Venus we're talking about right now, but as all these planets move through gate 25, they're going to show us different areas in our life, depending on how your chart, where Aries is in your chart, for example. We're going to see the areas that we're going to be available and potentially vulnerable to shock. Now, the thing about shocks are they're meant to be integrated and used as a redirect, essentially, or a recreation or a reshaping of something. So even though they're initially jarring and we can initially take on this victim mentality of, oh, what's happened to me? This is terrible. Why me? It's actually the universe showing you something, directing you somewhere, or opening a new source of love for you. And a lot of the time, these things don't feel like that's really what's behind them. They feel almost like, someone bad has done something to us. It feels very disempowering. But this is a year in which we're going to really be challenged to keep our belief and our definition of what good and bad is open so that we can accept the gifts that the cosmos is offering. We're going to be presented with so many things we've never seen before, we've never dealt with before, and that's the nature of shock. We don't know what it is. It's hard to integrate. It can be traumatic at first because it's so jarring, but when we let these things really land and integrate, they move us in a new direction in life, and that leads to evolution because love is a self-organizing system and it's always keeping things in balance. So these things are happening for a reason, not because God hates us and wants to disrupt our paradigm just because he has like judged us. So keep that in mind. We have to be open to also soothing ourselves because the moment that shock arrives is not the moment that it's integrated. We're going to have to give ourselves time to deal and cope with the new things that are showing up in our world and then respond from that place of homeostasis. If we're reacting out of fight or flight, out of scarcity, out of fear, out of victimhood, we go immediately to that place because something's thrown us off balance. It's going to really destabilize us, and this snake year is gonna slip out of our hands. We have to be willing to be really grounded and patient and stay in the body and soothe the body and not let nightmare scenarios of catastrophic thinking run us into the future where we're no longer the master of our, destiny. So Venus going into gate 25 is going to begin to kind of, begin this process of showing us what this shocking year might have in store for us. But it's also a gate, again, of universal love. So it's going to be unlocking this innate sense and this innate ability for humanity to be unconditionally loving. This is where unconditional love lives, gate 25. So a lot of this is really going to be about us understanding the nature of unconditional love on a more experiential level and growing and evolving from that. And then finally, Venus retrograde goes into gate 36. Gate 36 is right here in the solar plexus. It's called the darkening of the light. And it's also known as a gate of crisis. So the official keynote for gate 36 is the rule of cycles in which decline is a natural but not enduring stage. And 36 is going to be heavily featured in the nodes and a couple other transits, like as Neptune and Saturn finish
Hey
their transit
Siri,
of
call James.
making sure everyone's muted. Thank you so much. Um, Again, gate 36 is kind of hinting to us that the rule of cycles in which decline is a natural but not enduring stage. So as Venus hits gate 36, also as I was saying, Neptune and Saturn at the end of their Pisces transit, right before they go into Aries, are also going to be dragging through gate 36. The North Node is going to be going through gate 36. And then once Venus goes direct, she's going to go through gate 36 again. So it's like we're going to have these moments several times throughout the year where we hit a crisis and we're going to feel like, oh my God, it's getting worse and worse. And then shortly after that, we're going to see transformations that show us that actually progress is being made. And why is that? Because gate 36, the darkening of the light, leads to gate 35, the gate of progress. So all of these hiccups that we might feel as these planets are changing signs are actually hints of forthcoming progress. Even though we might not solve all of these problems in the year 2025, there is an indication that a lot of cycles which are that feel like decline, that feel like they're pulling away our energy, where we're kind of getting boxed in and we don't know what the future holds, the darkening of the light. Well, guess what? The sun always comes out the next day, and that's definitely going to be what happens. So when we get to human design new year, we're going to see the chart that's going to define the entire year ahead of us. And that's going to be around January 22nd, 21st of the year. I'll pull up that chart because that chart really shows us the design of the year. And not many people know how to do that. So we'll just get it going here. And it's going to look a lot like the chart we already had on the screen because it's going to have this channel of transitoriness. When we do a transit chart in human design, we only use the personality side because transits don't have bodies, When we look at a person's human design chart, the red side is their body. These are not humans, so they don't have a body. We just have one side. So human design new year. We're kicking off the year with this is what the year is looking like. So for the entire year, even when this channel goes away, we're living in a year where this channel of transitoriness, which is an emotional manifesting year, is front and center. So what does that mean? It means that our solar plexus, which, mind you, is the most powerful center in the entire body graph, in our 9 centers in our body, the solar plexus has the most energetic output by far. It's the biggest energy. It's solar. It's like the sun. And our solar plexus is under active mutation, which means that up until February 18th, 2025, there's an inside process going on within us where the solar plexus is getting ready to switch on as an awareness center. In the past, it's been this source of what we call emotion. Emotions have a bad rap. They're known they're known to be extreme and nonlinear and nonsensical, and we don't know what to do with them. They overwhelm us and they overwhelm people that we're in relationship with. They're these big, pushy energies that don't seem to have a lot of clarity and don't seem to have a lot of common sense. But emotions are actually our spirit talking directly to us through our bodies. The issue is the receptors that we have within us haven't been ready, haven't been fully primed to receive such high voltage communication from our higher self. So what happens when the voltage is too high for the circuitry? We blow a fuse. We have moments where we can't hold the frequency, and we have meltdowns, and we have dark nights of the soul, and we have, burnout, just emotional burnout. That's been par for the course up to this point, and it's going to continue to be until 2027 because we're at the final moments of a very intense, very long mutative process where our bodies are getting ready to be able to hold this energy, not just as a momentary spark of emotion with highs and lows and despair and whatever, but to keep that solar frequency, that consistent awareness on all the time, like a broadband connection. So all of the faulty circuits, all of the things that would block that pure connection to our higher self coming through as a constant source of guidance and awareness need to be worked out in the meantime. And that's why we're entering a year like this. The solar plexus is defined and it's connected directly to the throat. The throat is about expression, manifestation, about transformation. So all of that crap that's been stuck in the solar plexus, repressed emotions, toxins, you name it, all that repression, suppression, things that just get stored away or stuck inside us, all that stuck energy this year has somewhere to go. It has a release valve in the throat center. And that release valve says, take all the shame and the guilt and the repression and the self-hatred and the not speaking up for yourself and not taking up space and not valuing yourself and all the consequences of those patterns and beliefs and actions, and transform them into action, motion, manifestation, expression, or just purge. Just purge it. Some of us are going to transmute this stuff into fuel for our dreams. Others of us are just going to purge this stuff like we never have before. And that's great because it's much better outside of you than it is inside your body, inside your energy body, holding you back, holding you down, blocking you. And we basically have to do this because when the very strong energy of 2027 and the next 400-year cycle that year begins for us starts to hit, if we have stuff stuck in our body, it's going to be really hard to function. So we're being given an opportunity by the cosmos to purge all this stuff up this year so that we have space for the new high frequency energies that will continue to roll in after 2027. And they're literally going to burn away because they're so powerful. They're going to burn away all the stuff that's low vibrational, that is not in alignment with nature, that is, causing us to stay stuck in whatever schemes, basically being harvested by other people for money or energy or whatever. All this stuff is going to burn away with the new frequencies, but we have to be ready to hold them in our bodies and we have to do the clearing work. So this is a big year for clearing and purging. I already saw this coming, so I invested in detox courses. I've been creating a supplement arsenal to support me on this process because 2025 is my cleanse year. I want to use that Virgo energy, that snake energy to get into all the nooks and crannies and remove all the resistance in my system so that I am as vibrant and clear as possible to receive this basically divine intervention that's coming through our bodies. So HD New Year also shows us that the nodal theme will be selflessness in the North Node. There's going to be a lot of a global call to for people to be more selfless in this time, for obvious reasons. We can already see an example of like the fires in LA and how people have rallied around those individuals to help and support them. We're going to need, in a time of shock and initiation, we're going to have selflessness on tap to make sense of it all, right? In the South Node, we have, okay, so for me, the South Node is not so much an energy of like letting go or releasing. That definitely does happen. There is a secretion process with the South Node. But for me, as a, Capricorn stellium that loves opportunity and loves growth, I see the South Node as what we're going to be very natural and good at during this time. So what's going to be easy, accessible, it's like we just kind of land it perfectly without even trying. And in this year's cycle, it's called being discovered. And that's gate 46, which is the love of the vessel, the love of the body, the love of being in the journey of your unique path, even when it's not super enjoyable. Gate 46 is about dedication to yourself. And it's the design of those who succeed where others fail. And the reason that people with gate 46 succeed where others fail is that they stay true to their path and continue walking it even when it's not appealing. They show up in the scene, they just show up in front of you and they seem like they just walked in and won the lotto. Well, they've been walking to get to that point of that win for 5 years and 100,000 miles. Gate 46 seems to be lucky, but it's because they really stick to loving their frequency and their vibration and staying with it. So that's going to be true for all of us this year. It looks like it's going to be easier to really stay true to our lane, our cosmic lane that we're meant to navigate in. And by doing that, we're picking up the opportunities that are truly meant for us. We're being discovered in a very accessible way this year. We have the moon in the gate 1 of the creative. So we're just going to be kind of driven by this creative force that's coming through all of us. This is a very primal gate, so there's no way to tell how this will manifest, but it's an energy of just pure, it's the most masculine energy in the gate, in the system. So I think that the divine masculine waking up will be a big theme for this year. Our mind will be fixated on occult knowledge. So we're all going to be studying systems, whether it's astrology, human design, gene keys, family constellation, things like this. These systems that explain how life works are going to be very popular this year. So all of you practitioners that share that information, it's a great year for you. Be visible, speak your truth, teach us what you know, and we are going to discover you because it's a year of being discovered. Venus says that the values will lie in grace, which means that people who are natural, innocent, not contrived, authentic, are going to be the most attractive in this year. They're going to be pulling an opportunity, pulling in attention. They're going to get the spotlight on them. And this is people who don't have a lot of emotional baggage. We're getting more astute in terms of frequency. We know when somebody has a lot of darkness in them, even if they look great on camera. This is going to be a year in which people that feel authentic are going to get the spotlight. Mars, our drive is focusing on the details in the gate of detail in Cancer. Jupiter is focusing on humility. So we make this progress out of our darkness through humility. Let's click on that one. Let's get the inside scoop on what does humility really look like. The ability to accept rejection. So all of these times in the past, things that we hold shame over, things that we dislike ourselves over, experiences we've had where we didn't feel loved, accepted, welcomed, we hold that against ourselves. We hold that rejection against ourselves, and it starts to define our future because we're holding an energy of, I was rejected, I feel rejected, I don't like myself. Then you take that identity into every moment after that. Jupiter says, in order to expand this year, You have to accept where you've been rejected in the past and understand that that was for your benefit. You don't belong there. That's why you were rejected. So if you keep holding that against yourself, you're going to stay stuck. If you accept the places that you don't belong, you're going to expand in 2025. Saturn says that the limitation lies in nostalgia, which is the good sense to avoid turning the previous struggle into an obsession. The logic of leaving old doubts behind. That's what we just talked about. So Jupiter and Saturn are working together this year to help us leave our old doubts behind and accept where we don't belong so that we can expand into the spaces where we're welcomed, loved, etc. Uranus is asking us to innovate the unique way that we express ourselves. Neptune is closing down an era of crisis because Neptune is in line 6, which is called justice, the inevitable survival of right, which means dark forces end up destroying themselves, which is cool. And that'll be fun to watch. And then finally, Pluto is in gate of rigidity. So in this first degree of Aquarius, it's about being rigid, the intuitive intellect to recognize when absolute rigidity is essential, but with innovative applications to lessen its severity, a fixed energy that is unusual in its capacity for restraint. So what does that all mean? It means that the key to unlocking transformation and ascension in this year cycle is to understand like when rigidity is absolutely essential. Like I can't drink milk anymore because it ruins my gut health and it's messing up my solar plexus. Rigidity. I can't do it anymore. I have to be rigid with this new rule. But in that, there's room for innovation as well. So it's about really accepting our limitations. This is the gate of limitations in line 6. And whenever we hit a line 6, we no longer just look at the gate, we look at the entire circuit. So gate 16, line 6 is looking at the entire individual circuit. Your individual circuit gates in your design basically show us where you're here to be a completely original person that's never done things that way before. So what I really mean is like, you're here to bring something to this world, your frequency, your gift, your voice, whatever. You're here to do it in a way that no one's ever done it before. There's never been another you. And the more faithful to how unique and weird the way that you do it, the more you will thrive in the year 2025. The more that you accept that you have to be freaking weird to really feel comfortable in life and to really do things the way that feels good to you, the more easy this year will be. The more that you keep trying to change a little bit in hopes that you're a little bit appealing over here and maybe you'll get some customers over here. If you no, it's like total commitment to your freak flag is the pathway through 2025 in your routines, in how you show up and how you speak and who you interact with and who you don't interact with. Boom, there it is. Okay, so that's our human design New Year chart to give us like, and remember, this is going to be like the overarching energy for the whole year. And now we're going to go back to our slides. I never do slides, but I wanted to do this for you guys this time. And we get cool pictures of the planets. So now we're going to go into each planet moving into these gates. So Neptune and Aries. Neptune and Aries is, I titled it, The Sun's Sentinel Rebirths Itself. Why? Because in old astrological texts, Neptune is described as the farthest outpost of the sun. So if the sun is the light of our consciousness and like the core and focal point for who we are and our identity, Neptune is like the guardian that stays in the outskirts to look at what's in the expanse, what's coming from the void, what's coming in from the other galaxies and kingdoms. Neptune is our guardian that's way out there, making sure and sending intel back to the sun of what's coming next. So when when Neptune moves into Aries, Aries rules the head, Aries rules the brain, the identity. It's giving us collective psychic attunement to what is new, like what is birthing itself. Aries is the child, it's the first sign, it's spring equinox, it's the beginning of a new cycle. Neptune is going to spiritually be connecting to us to share intel on what's coming in this new cycle. Pluto's in Aquarius for 20 years. Saturn and Neptune, they are very slow moving as well. They're not going to be back in Pisces for decades. It's a very fresh new energy. And we also have a whole new type of human being being born in 2027 called the Raves. Many of you have probably heard me talk about them. Just picture like how we evolved out of a Cro-Magnon or a previous primate. Another new form is coming from us. It's called a Rave. These are beings that don't have an individual ego. They're here to revolutionize the way we do things here on Earth because we're here to experience this consciousness that flows through all of us in a less separate fashion. This is an illusion of separateness. In the quantum universe, we're actually all smashed together in one big thing. But the way that we process this reality, we all feel separate, we all have different identities, la la la. We're going to move more into a unity vibration. We're all connected. Maybe it's like, the techno-futurism wave, like we're all connected to the cloud through the chip. But honestly, we're all connected through our solar plexus. So these new rave beings are going to be showing us how to be more connected in every area of our consciousness and our life. And they're going to change the world because they're the new favorites. We're the old model. We're the old school human beings that are still trying to do things this clunky way. And look at all the problems we have. The raves are like when a new baby is born in the family and all the attention and all the gifts and all the love get given to that new baby. It's just how it works. So we have to be very humble and very kind of accept this challenge of bringing this new kind of consciousness into the world. And it's going to bring us challenges, but it's going to bring us gifts. So Neptune in Aries is starting to get us ready for that. This is not till 2027. The raves don't come till 2027, but we're starting to kind of figure out what our new job might be and what it's going to look like because we're the adults here. So, especially if you're a spiritual person with a spiritual practice, like it's about maturity. It's about being able to handle more. It's about being able to hold great change in one lifetime and to do it with grace and love and, all that good stuff. So, Neptune is slow moving. It's only going to make it through 3 lines of gate 25. We've talked a bit about gate 25 already. Gate 25 is unconditional love. Neptune is also a planet of unconditional love. It's very unrealistic. It's delusional. It seems delusional, but it's actually based on very real awareness. So Neptune in the first 3 lines of gate 25 says, we're going to be really expanding our capacity for unconditional love. Neptune expands. It's like the planet that rules over the screen. So like when somebody like Oprah has a show that's on every screen, everywhere in every country, that syndication effect, that viral effect, Neptune is that viral effect. So unconditional love is going viral in 2025, starting April 3rd and moving us all the way through. It will still be in gate 25, but we do hit a retrograde July 4th. But essentially all through from April to July, end of July, we have unconditional love themes. Now remember, gate 25 is the borderlands between Pisces and Aries. So when it does go retrograde, it's going to dip back into Pisces a little bit and do some finishing up there. And then towards the end of the year, move back into Aries. But this is the main run of Neptune and Aries from April to the end of July. The 3 themes we're going to be working with in this time are sensibility, survival, and recuperation. So sensibility is knowing what to do when something shocking happens or learning how to adapt to that because line 3 is trial and error. It's a place where we learn to mix things, match things that have not been together before and make something new out of it. We are basically We're developing a new sensibility for how we deal with life as a collective. So where we used to be very rigid, we used to be very offended, we used to be very closed off to new things, shocking us and entering our world. As a collective, this shows that we're going to get better at accepting new things. We're going to have a new sensibility to our ability to accept shock and initiation. For this corridor of time from May to June, um, we move into line 4, survival, which is establishing a new pattern that really sets us up for success. I really want to read this keynote to you. So I got to look it up. It's really like poetic, this one. The nature of true innocence can be maintained regardless of circumstances. Oh, and by the way, gate 25 is the gate of innocence. So that's where that unconditional love, that's where that uncontrived action, it's like you're just the geode waiting to be hammered and broken open so that their crystals can show to the world. Like we need the shock to transform us. And when we get to line 4, survival, we see that the nature of true innocence can be maintained regardless of circumstances. The sand went through the lightning storm and got shocked, but it didn't get destroyed. It got turned into something more beautiful. Regardless of circumstances, innocence can be maintained. The beauty of the rose in the garbage dump, Jupiter also exalted, the highest principles, even amongst the greatest decadence, the spiritual warrior, the innocence maintained regardless of circumstances. So mark your calendars. From May to June, you are a spiritual warrior, whether you like it or not. And you're going to be asked to hold true to your higher principles regardless of the decadence that you see around you. Now, think of that word, decadence. We tend to think, oh, like it's a decadent cake, it's a decadent hotel. Decay is the root word of decadence. It's showing that something is out of balance, out of alignment. It's too much. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. And that's going to be interesting because all of these energies are going to feel so new because they're just like coming out of nowhere to affect us that we might feel a little bit thrown off this whole time. But when we look back, we're going to see how these energies forced us to grow into somebody like a spiritual warrior, where you have to get so clear on your values. You have to get so clear on what truly matters to you and stick to that. Remember, gate 60 is rigidity this year. You have to get so rigid with what is really true for you that it's going to galvanize you into an even stronger warrior individual. But at the core of that warrior is innocence. It's not the drive to take over something or to dominate. It's to stay true to what really matters. That is what that is at the heart of gate 25. So, and one really good expression of what really matters is self-love. When you love yourself, you are the natural conduit for what really matters. And I just need to check who is unmuted right now. Rena De Silva. Okay. Now I need to find my again. Okay, sorry. Okay. And then finally, line 5, recuperation. When innocence is sapped of its vitality, healing is the first priority. So self-care is going to be the main viral trend from June 6th onward until the retrograde hits. So this last thing is about, let's read it. This last part is about the ability to recognize the inner meaning of an affliction and to withdraw until it is healed. The power of the spirit to heal and be healed. So we're going to see massive collective healing in this fifth line. We're going to see solutions to problems come out of nowhere. We're going to be able to see the root of our problems a lot more easily. Gate 25 is like the starting point for anything. It's the birth gate. So we're going to be able to go back to our origin point of a lot of our issues, see them for what they are, and then dedicate ourselves to what needs to take place for us to heal from that. Healing is going to become a global thing. And sometimes that can be scary. Like, why are we all healing? Is it another disease? And I don't think it's that. I don't think the big healing thing is a disease. Sorry, I was just muting another person. Give me an invite. Excellent. So next we have Saturn and Aries. Okay, I love this picture. It came out really well. So I call this the great teacher guides a fresh start, because if we're going to be going into this spiritual expansion with Neptune and Aries, that's limitless. It's just going and going and going. It's like profundity into infinity. Saturn and Aries is like, let's put some limitation on this. Let's put some structure to this. Like, how is this really going to happen? And that's why we love Saturn, because without it, we would just be flying. Oh, whoops. Oh, this is the wrong slide. Okay. Well, it's okay. There's always one hiccup, but I'll go back up. Saturn and Aries. I just have to read it to you from the book. So, let's see here. Saturn and Aries happens from Saturn and Aries happens from June 11th, roughly June 11th onward. And it's, guess what? It's going to start in gate 25 again. We've got so much gate 25 energy. So that means that when Saturn first enters lovely, how do I go back? Sorry. We're basically, maybe that's why I didn't do that slide, because it's the same three gates. We're going to go through all these three lines of sensibility, survival, and recuperation, except we're going to do it with Saturn. So those three energies and kind of the spiritual warrior and staying true to our core principles and not letting the world around us basically taint us and make us believe that it's not worthwhile to stay true to what really matters to us. Like, that's definitely going to be a temptation to kind of give up this year and be like, everything just is so mind-boggling. I'm just going to go back to eating this processed food and just, give up on myself. Saturn is going to come in and be like, because if it was just Neptune, Neptune wouldn't care. Neptune's just like, oh, you're giving up on yourself? Okay, whatever. There's dreams and delusion in that. Just explore that and see what you come up with. And Saturn is coming right after and it's like, no, 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 no. We got to do this right. And I'm going to make you feel it if you're not doing it right. And what is right and what is wrong? Well, right is your frequency. You have an innate default core frequency. That's your astrology chart. That's your human design. That's what makes you you. Your blueprint, your template has a certain orientation. You can think of it as a musical piece. So each one of us has a song, a song, like an orchestra, a a sonnet, whatever, a concerto. Each one of us has a vibration that's unique from the next. Saturn wants to help you really lock into that, right? Because Saturn is the structure. And in Aries, it's about birthing into a more pure version of you. Because with Neptune and Saturn going through all this Pisces stuff, we've been clearing all the old crap. So many of us don't even know who we are because we still identify with the person we've had to be out of adaptation or out of the crisis and drama and trauma that has come with us into this life. So that's how we identify. Now with Saturn and Aries, we're saying, no, we're cutting off that old story and we're forcing you, we're structuring you into the new start. This is who you are now. It's not who you used to be. Don't try and go play that game. It'll hurt. You're in a different frequency now. And Saturn is here to show you through sensibility, through survival, and through recuperation that you're going to set yourself up for this new embodiment, this new identity. So that means all of us are going to be changing. And wherever Aries is in your chart, if you know that, like if you know, oh, Aries is my first house, Aries is my 10th house. Like for me, Aries is my 10th house. So that's my career, right? That's my how the society perceives me, how all of you perceive me. This is a 10th house activity right now. Aries is going to go in there and make sure everything is tip top. If there's any loose ends, if there's any business solutions that are not actually working for me, if there are any partners or collaborators that are not actually in alignment, Saturn's going to make that very clear to me so that I don't bring any of that old stuff into my fresh new story. Same thing for you. It could be your mindset in the third house. It could be your belief structure in the ninth house. It could be your day-to-day routines and activities in the sixth house. It could be your relationships in the seventh house. Wherever Aries is for you, could be your rising sign. It could be you, yourself, going into a completely new embodiment. I really encourage you to think of Saturn as a supportive teacher and not as like a punisher, because Saturn is not a punisher. The only thing that's punishing is that if you're working against the truth, you can't argue with the truth. It's gonna smack you. You're gonna run into it. If you drive your car into a wall, it's gonna crunch it. There is no way around that. That's just how it is. Saturn is here to make sure that you see that and you abide by the limitations that are present because your limitations are your guardians. And if we have solid foundations and solid structures, we can then grow something amazing out of it. But first, we have to be where we are to do that. Saturn Aries will check you if you're trying to move too quickly, too delusionally, too expansively. And, it's the sign of the ram. So you just kind of get up and do it better the next time because there's a resilience in Aries. Newborns are resilient. Fresh life is resilient. And here's the other thing. Whenever a planet goes into a new sign, the most energy, the most power, the most you're going to feel it is right in the beginning. And then it kind of fades off and tapers out. Maybe there's a finale at the end. But I want you to know that, like, I put all these dates in here. Let's go back. Because if you know ahead of time, you can use these first moments of energy. If you don't use the first moments of energy, speaking from experience, if you're late to the party and you don't take the first moments of energy, it's diluted. And if you don't want a diluted life, you have to show up on time to catch that fresh spark. Because Aries is the spark, it's going to be like spark on spark. So know where you're going to be March 30th. Know where you're going to be May 21st, 24th. Be grounded and ready to receive this energy and channel it to whatever it is meaningful for you. Because you're only born once, right? At least in this lifetime. That's a very special, monumental moment. You're born once and you die once. These are probably the biggest things you'll ever do. So to get this much birth energy in the middle of our lives, right? Very special. It's not to be slept on. Okay, now we can move forward. Talked a lot about Aries, Saturn and Aries, our campaign assets. And then Uranus and Gemini. What? More? Yes, more. Uranus and Gemini. Okay, so um, the node, like what happened? The nodes were in Gemini and ChatGPT was born. Jupiter went into Gemini. We saw AI go full global, right? Become like this global force. Quantum computing, blah, 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 blah. All this stuff is about technology. Gemini is basically the sign that we can watch and know that it means technological developments. Now, so far, it's just been like Mars and Gemini. Mars and Gemini was actually when AI really came out global in 2022, retrograde. So then Jupiter expanded that. Now we're going to have Uranus going. So what is Uranus? It's an outer planet and it's our connection to the higher self. So the reason that Uranus gets associated with sudden change and revolution and curveball energy is because the consciousness and the energy levels of the higher self are so far out there and so different than the way that we operate here down on earth that it's like, what the hell is that? I don't even know what that is. You're trying to, like, when we hit our set when we hit our Uranus opposition around 40 44 in that range, um it's like, what the hell is happening? Where the ground beneath my feet has fallen away, and like I have no sense of security in my identity. It's like, no, because your higher self is coming in, and it's almost unrecognizable a lot of the time to the person we've had to be to survive in the world up to that point. So let's think of that in terms of technology. Technology hasn't met its higher self yet. Technology has only, what we see of technology is what it's had to be to survive in the world up to this point. When Uranus enters Gemini, technology will make contact with its higher self. And that new perspective that is so freaking different from what we're used to will start to take over and shift the direction of that story. It's Gemini. There's a duality. There's always two sides to the coin. So it's not like, yay, the angels downloaded their consciousness into AI and saved us. It's not going to just be that simple, as much as that would be great. There's going to be two sides to the coin. So there is probably going to be like creepy, weird, satanic AI that's like trying to become president and tax us for breathing or whatever, just very extreme definitions of it. And then we're going to see evolution, revolution, and innovation on a level that we will no longer, it will not even make sense to us. It'll be so far out of the context of our consciousness as human beings. So this means in random spurts, technology is just going to go pew. It's just going to change everything. And this is a year of the taming power of the small. So to me, I believe it's going to be the manipulation of particles, particle physics, atoms, things like that. We're going to change the way we see the atomic universe, and it's going to change the implications of how we generate energy, how we communicate, how we share and store data, all this stuff. It's going to become quantum. So that'll be really interesting and shocking. So in 2025, though, this would just be the very kind of preview. It's not the full blown Uranus and Gemini. It's just this time from July 7th to, I guess this would be September something, when Uranus goes retrograde. And it's only going to take us through the first two lines of gate 20. Now, this is interesting because gate 20 is part of integration circuitry. And the integration circuitry is what you see here. It's the 34, 10, and the 20, basically. It's not a circuit. It's the mother of all circuits. So what I'm trying to say is the integration circuitry is what started life itself. Before we were the nine-centered, evolved humans that we are today, maybe we were just five-centered, kind of mammalian humans. And the backbone of the life force of those beings was the 3420 channel. This is the original archetype of the manifesting generator. And for those who don't know, the order was reflectors came first, then manifesting generators, then manifestors and generators came out of the manifesting generator, and then projectors came down in their spaceship in 1781. So basically, we're going to see an innovation, Uranus, in the very archetypal nature of what it means to be in a body. 3420 is a life form with a body that stands upright. Gate 20 is our ability to communicate and move at will, basically, manifesting generator to do something when it needs to be done to survive. Uranus in Gemini is going to show innovation, probably in technology's ability to move and communicate at will, moving through these first two gates. At first, it's going to be superficial because that technology is not going to be that deep. The communication that we have with technology is going to be superficial. We won't see its true depth yet. It may be hiding its true depth from us. Who knows? Or maybe its capacity to interact with us in a meaningful way will not be that great. Then we get into line 2, which is called the dogmatist, which is about a very specific focus of awareness. Another aspect of this gate 20 is that it's about self-awareness, which is really interesting when we think about technology. So we could see sudden innovations beginning with technology becoming self-aware, starting with this transit of Uranus and Gemini. So that's big because if it becomes self-aware, then it can become self-governing, then it can make free will choices, and it could act perhaps against its creators or in a way that its creators did not intend. And that's how it always goes. Someone created us. Well, that's a whole other story, but and we went against that whole thing, and here we are. But we do take after our creators ultimately, and look, we're doing what they did. So we'll have to have another webinar for that, or just like a powwow, maybe. So anyway, that's our first two gates. We're looking at technology becoming self-aware, or at least moving and acting in a willful way that it has not been able to previously. It's starting to get its body. This is part of the archetype of life force in form. So there's some kind of new movement in the way that the physical form that technology takes changes. For all of us as well, it's a huge upgrade in our self-awareness. This is not all about robots. It's about us as humans seeing ourselves in a new way. We are seeing ourselves from a higher self perspective. So that changes everything. The why you thought you were driven by this or that, why you look this way, why you feel this way, from the higher self, it's a completely different knowing than from within the limited 3D self. So we're going to get to know ourselves with this Uranus and Gemini a lot better as well. As spiritual beings, I would say, because we pretty much know ourselves as 3D beings. But where have we come from? What are we capable of? What are these bodies capable of? When they're not overburdened with like toxic food and bad frequencies and all this stuff. There are miracles happening every single day. They're just different for everyone. So we don't have like a standard understanding of what miracles are or how they work. This might be the beginning of really the science of miracles coming through, like how to repeatably, dependably get a miraculous result in the human body, perhaps. Okay. So there's that. And then Uranus goes retrograde September, and then, we go back and forth, and it takes us into 2026. So then we have Jupiter in Cancer. Woo, I have Jupiter in Cancer. So I subtitled this one, and I know I was like, this sounds a little jarring, but I'm going to leave it anyway. The roaring reproduction of the robot economy. Just channeled that one in. And why? Why? Well, in the context of all these other transits of new birth and fresh starts and new beginnings and how much emphasis is being placed on the growth of technology and AI and all this stuff, I really feel like on a collective level, and that's only one layer of this, the collective always displays the most kind of low vibrational version of the energy. Whereas us individually are where we really get into like the city and the higher frequencies. So obviously we experience it both, but collectively, I do think because because Cancer is like, what's that guy's name? Elon Musk. He's a Cancer, making more stuff, creating more stuff, cars and spaceships, and he's just always making more. That's what Cancer does, and that's why Jupiter is exalted in Cancer because Jupiter is a planet of expansion and growth and wealth and good luck and all these things. It's also creating the timelines that we operate on. So like it's going to expand that quality of reproduction in every area. It's going to bring a lot of abundance. So let's look at the gates. We cover more gates here, so that's fun. We get to talk about more stuff. So it starts off in gate 15, which is the gate of extremes. And that's here in the G center. This is the center, this is the gate of actual magnetism. We are electromagnetic beings. Our aura is an electromagnetic expression of our energy. The magnetic part comes from gate 15. It's where our aura gets generated. So the collective aura is getting a huge boost in 2025. Our ability to be connected to Earth's aura, the Schumann resonance, just the overall geological electromagnetics are going to boom, because gate 15 is the gate of extremes. It's about bringing energy up to a height, it's about genetic activation, and it's about holding more energy in our bodies. So we are going to get really full of like that solar magnetic energy. And this might mean more solar flares, it's just going to be happening for a long time now. But probably more solar flares in this first 18 days of Jupiter in Cancer. Electromagnetism, planetary aura, individual aura. This is also part of a penta. So the first 18 days of Jupiter in Cancer may be a time of accelerated magnetization to people you share a frequency with. Because birds of a feather flock together, you're going to be magnetizing people who are more on your frequency at an expanded capacity during that time. Gate 15 is very much a group energy. That's why my Jupiter in Cancer in gate 15, that's why I like to work in groups like this, because it can distribute a lot of energy in the group and circulate that magnetism. And specifically in the science of Penta, which is human design of groups, basically, gate 15 is what keeps everyone together. Magnetism holds together. So if you have an organization, you have a strong gate 15, it keeps everybody working together. You get it. So then we're moving into gate 52 for 26 days. This is down in the root center, and it's called Keeping Still Mountain. So we're going to charge up on magnetic energy, and then Jupiter is going to expand our capacity to sit still for 26 days. And what's great about this 26-day period, and that begins, I'll give you the exact date. That begins on June 27th. The 26 days that begins on June 27th is actually a time where Jupiter will make an electromagnetic connection with that gate 9, which is the preponderance of the small or the taming power of the small, which I I'm saying is the year mascot energy, basically, the overarching year energy. It's also a 9 year numerologically. And we're also in what's called, it's called like basically step 9 in feng shui. There are different periods. Period 9. Period 9 is about fire, it's about femininity, it's about the eyes, it's about syndication, horizontal growth rather than vertical growth. But anyway, it's a 9 year. That's why I made 999 the code to this webinar, because this is year of nines. Like, get your nines on. But basically, gate 52 is going to be plugging into that gate 9 energy for that 26 days. And I think that this 26 days is going to be the power move corridor. This month of gate 52 in Jupiter, yes, it's called keeping still mountain. It's about staying in your own space and being able to push out all external pressure so that you're kind of in your own bubble. And then in that bubble, insights, inspiration, just spontaneous knowing about the universe and the inner workings of reality can come to you and inspire you to make a new business plan, to design your life differently, to just know how to move through this world in a really powerful way and in a safe way. I just think there's great, great things coming in this 20. That's my like golden goose of the year. So pay attention then. Then we hit gate 39, which is about provocation of the spirit. So gate 39 is down here in the root as well, and it pushes up on gate 55 and says, stop. Stop doing all these freaking emotional waves and just sit and feel. And when you sit there and feel your feelings, what's there? Stop trying to go get something else to make you feel something. Feel what you're feeling now in your body, even if you hate it, because there's valuable information there that if you don't integrate, you won't move forward. You'll just feel like you are. So gate 39 says, stop and face the triggers. And when you do that, you free yourself from the trigger. So it's going to be a time of emotional liberation. It's also going to be a time of being really freaking triggered, probably by some things, by some people, by some situations, or maybe it's everywhere. Either way, it's helping you see where the abundance in your life is and is not. If something triggers you so much that you can't sit with it or don't want to sit with it to integrate it, it's clearly not for you. If someone is so triggered by you that they can't handle it, they're clearly not for you. And that's what this gate 39 Jupiter is going to do. It's going to really pick sides in a lot of things. Family disputes, relational disputes, governmental disputes. We're going to be picking sides. We're going to go with what we believe is the more powerful force, because that's part of gate 55 is joining with powerful forces or like forces. And we're also going to see what stops us from doing that. So if we are meant to be somewhere or with a group or something, and we're being stopped, we're going to see what's stopping us, and we're going to try and clear that block. That's 28 days of that. So it's like nice little month-long periods almost of each energy. And then we get to gate 53 after that. So we've sat with ourselves, we've kind of absorbed, we've up-leveled energetically, we've cleared a lot of blocks to what keeps us from our abundance, and we've taken new sides, we've chosen new, helpers, allies, if you will. And then by the time we get to gate 53, it's time for a new beginning, because gate 53 is the gate of new beginnings. So gate 53 is also here in the root. It's going to kick off a new abstract cycle of creation. So for 31 days, we're going to have the capacity to begin a whole new cycle that could potentially last for the rest of our lives, because it's an abstract gate and we don't know where that finish line is when it's abstract. With logic, we can kind of forecast and analyze and study the pattern, maybe look to the past for how things went last time this happened. But with abstract, it's a new journey. We have to be committed to the journey. It's that gate 46 energy of sticking with your lane that I spoke of in the beginning. That begins when we hit gate 53. Now, the determining factor if of what you begin at this time is going to be successful is if you begin it correctly. If you're a generator and you initiate something during gate 53 time, it's not going to go well because you're here to respond. If you're a manifester and you you respond to something, it's not going to go well. If you're a projector and you don't wait for an invitation, that new beginning is going to run out of steam. It's going to fall flat. So you really need to know how to enter into something as your true self, meaning you need to know your strategy and authority to make the most of these 31 days of new beginnings. And once we get the new beginning going, we're going to move into gate 62, which is getting all the details in place and building it. And this is where we really get going because we're here for 105 days because of a retrograde towards the end of the year. So 103 months of gate 62, Cancer, which is a logical gate. Let's look where it is. It's up here in the throat. It's actually where the full moon is today. So something about today is directly relating to this time period. I'll give you the exact dates here. September 18th, basically till the end of the year. I would really, look at what comes up around this full moon that's happening right now in gate 62. And then really think about that when we hit September 18th and see if there's a correlation. There is going to be one, trust me, but not in the way you might expect. So then from there, this is a manifestation gate. And the keynote goes, when excellence is achieved, metamorphosis is inevitable. And what is excellence in this definition? It's having all the logical details. It's the gate of detail. It's a gate of logic. You have to have all your ducks in a row by September 18th. And this thing, whatever you're building, will freaking explode. That's the beneficence of Jupiter's exaltation in Cancer. Even if it's mediocre, it's going to grow it like crazy. So you have the first half of the transit to get in position, to figure out what it is that you want, to begin to make alliances that support that, to lay the groundwork. And then by the time September 18th hits, we hit that production mode, just cranking it out. So whatever that looks like for you, it's going to be very different for everyone. That is abundance time for sure. All right. Just scared myself thinking I didn't record it. No, we're recording. We are recording. I do this. Okay. All right. So that's the fun of Jupiter and Cancer. We're excited about all that. We're just moving through this time. So let's recap. Let's go back to the beginning and recap. Lunar nodes, we talked about that. Venus retrograde, Aries and Pisces. We're really kind of like soothing a lot of the wounds of clearing all this karma with Neptune and Saturn and Pisces, and we're kind of getting ready to tell a new story at the end of that. Then Neptune enters Aries and starts to make us psychically aware of what might be coming next. It's also going to give us divine inspiration and going to let us know it's coming. It's the sentinel of the sun. It's letting us know it's coming from deep space. And then Saturn enters Aries to kind of concretize these new changes, really bring them into form, into matter. Jupiter enters Cancer and kicks off a cycle of everybody getting what they want. So make sure you know what you want. Even the bad guys are going to get what they want. You're going to get what you want. Just know what you want. Then Uranus enters Gemini and kind of switches it up for us and kind of brings in the unexpected and the It's not cataclysmic. It's not destructive. It looks destructive sometimes or disruptive, but it's because what was already in existence is outdated. It's just time to evolve it. So we got to bring in the higher self perspective. And then Pluto moves into gate 41. Now, this is the last thing I'll talk about before we close out today. So Pluto is now in Aquarius, right? And we've all celebrated that. I have 6 planets in Capricorn, my moon, my Venus, my Mars, personal planets. It was brutal. Having Pluto, the destroyer and the underworld ruler, go over all that stuff for 20 years. Why was it so brutal? Because this is kind of the age of Capricorn anyway. I mean, it's obviously not like in the star, that's the age of Pisces, but in our world, we so heavily rely upon the Capricornian archetype to run things in this global structure. So to have Pluto move there through there and start to kill it off was really uncomfortable for us. We had the pandemic and all that stuff. So now Pluto is in Aquarius, but it's still in the last gate that it's been in. So we haven't really felt the true Pluto and Aquarius energy yet, in my opinion, because it's still in the same gate that it was in when it was finishing Capricorn, which is gate 60, which is the gate of limitation. And right now it's in that line 6, asking us to have that rigidity, to not go back to the old ways, to stick to what works for us and really protect our individuality from external forces that would muddy that. So that's still kind of a Capricornian thing, right? It's still kind of like being this like master of our thing. And Pluto is about, I mean, sorry, Aquarius is like that water bear. It's like dumping all the gifts out to the collective and just like giving it away. So we're actually, and right now, because we're still in Dragon Year during this call, we're at the end of like growing our horns as like the Capricorn. We're at the very pinnacle of that. When Pluto hits 41, 41 is really going to be the Aquarian age. This is really where we're going to feel it and see it and know it. And it's undeniable that something is different and will never be, different. It will never be the same again. Everyone, please mute. If you're new on the call, mute. Thank you. And so with the 41, it's the very basis of the collective process. This whole experiential way that defines this year. When Pluto goes over that, it's going to kind of both energize it and kick off a whole new collective journey, but it's also going to kill off a lot of what we used to define this by. And this is the start codon in our DNA. This is the only start codon in our DNA. So Pluto is going to basically smash the start button, which means that our way of life, as we know it, since it's been like for a long time, hundreds of years, is going to start to shut down. Pluto is not an instantaneous death. Pluto is not the kill shot. It's a slow speed shutdown. It's the power slowly being waning away, draining away from the old systems. So when does this happen? Cliffhanger. When does this actually happen? When does Pluto go into gate 41 and both kick off the future, but also begin to shut down the ways of life as we know it? January 30th. So the day after the Lunar New Year and the Aquarius new moon, big shifts begin to hit. And that will take us all the way through August 20th, where the retrograde will bring us back into gate 60 for one last time. This is really the end of that whole like Capricorn thing. And that'll carry us through. We'll be in gate 60, which is like we're getting to stick our toes back into the old ways just to collect any last belongings or memories or whatever. And then by December 5th, we're kicking off into the new era once and for all. So in terms of global systems, maybe having issues, I would say preview first half of this year, starting January 30th, and then really kind of hitting the shit hitting the fan, as they say, December 5th onwards. And then we're just gonna have to adapt and evolve into a whole new, like, we'll see what that looks like. It's gonna be multiplicity. It's not gonna just be one. There is gonna be one big mainstream thing happening with technology and energy and all that crap. And then there's gonna be all these micro pockets that are like literally living in other dimensions almost. And that's what most of us will be a part of. So using this year to really perfect yourself, to really release all the ways that you are still vulnerable, to heal your body deeply, to get really entrenched in your skills and your gifts and to fully own them and stop playing small in those areas and to not get whiny about having to do new things you've never done before to reach new heights of who you are or expand larger. That's going to be key because we're spiritual adults now. We can no longer stick our head in the sand. That's just not going to work. Snake won't allow it. Snake will go and burrow where you've stuck your head in the sand and bite you under the sand. But you have to pull your head up and start looking around at what's actually happening. Okay? So that's all the transits I'm going to cover today. I do have a new thing that I'm doing. So for this year, I've created a new thing called HDM Pocket Coaching. And basically, you subscribe to a Telegram channel, and I give you daily updates on the energies and make sense of everything every single day. So, um, basically, you don't have to spend a year being like, why do I feel like this? And why am I not making any progress? And why does this suck so much? It's about contextualization, it's about reframing, it's about empowerment, it's about having somebody who's been on a journey for this will be my 14th year in human design to really guide you in the direction of alignment because alignment is the highest and the best, right? Your alignment is the best thing. So you want to do the pocket coaching and basically have a direct line to me as your personal coach and wizard for all of 2025, scan this code. I'll also send it in the email. But basically, the caveat is this is not a conversation, it's like a transmission. So there's not a million people texting me back in this Telegram group. That wouldn't work. It's a direct line from me, cosmic translation. And I'll also be able to live stream in there. So I will do little live streams and it's going to be super fun. And it feels really like Uranus and Gemini and all these cool things. So join me there. You won't be disappointed. You're working with the best here. So that's it, guys. That's the show today. It's been very fun. This has been just like literally responding to my strategy authority, putting this out, amazing response, amazing energy. This is how it's done. Oh, my screen never loaded for the code. Thanks for telling me. Can you see it now? And I'm excited to put a lot of love and magic into this in a way I've never not had to, but been able to before. I have taught a lot of courses over the years as well. And I will in your recording, when I send the recording out, you have an opportunity to get my whole course library too, because there's like a million hours of great conversation and teachings in there. So just like all this stuff that I've been developing over the years is more available than ever. And I found ways that work better for me to provide it to you than ever, which means it's better quality. And voila, that is it. So did you get the scan thing, everybody? Did it work? Okay, cool. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I gotta stop saying guys. Thank you, everyone. Um, you'll get your email with your recording. You'll get some opportunities to work with me in there in 2025 and keep being awesome. This year is a defining year, and a lot of people won't notice that it is. So I'm really glad you showed up today to begin to see the light. All right, 4 o'clock it is. Thank you so much. Love to you all, light to you all. Don't be a stranger. Find me on Instagram. Let's talk. Let's do this. All right. Bye everyone.